States are outside the gymnasium as there are inside, waiting to get in. A final note, though, on the Cuban delegation. Earlier
on the campus of Venezuela's Central University, the site of the Women's Gymnastics Championships. Everywhere this week, crowds waiting for a precious seat. Today was no different, as lines started forming 4 hours before the competition. Hi, everybody. I'm John Dockery, and what crowds we've had here. They're totally involved in the competition. They'll stamp their feet, they'll hoot and holler, they'll boo, they'll let you know where they stand at every point. And the man working with me, Peter Corman, is no stranger to Pan American Games crowds because he was a double gold medalist in 1975 in Mexico City. And Peter, this competition has really boiled down to a dual meet between the United States and Cuba.
Yes, it has. And as we compare these two teams, USA and Cuba, we find that they're about as different as they could possibly be. The U.S. team's average age is under 15 years old. That makes this the youngest women's team we've ever sent to a major international gymnastics competition. But don't be misled by that. These kids are extremely talented and they're very well trained. On the other hand, the Cuban team is very experienced. Their average age over 18. Many of them, in fact, have competed in Pan American Championships before. They know just what to expect. It's not going to be easy for our U.S. women, but I think with the talent they have, this is going to be a very exciting gymnastics meet.
And with the competition so close, the battle for the crowd and for the judges is all important. And earlier, when our American girls marched in, they may have struck the first blow.
Waving the Venezuelan flag, our girls took the podium. The gymnastics crowd can play a major role in the outcome, especially in Venezuela.
Okay, Peter, here are the standings going to the first rotation. The American girls trailing the Cuban women by just 0.3 of a point after the compulsory or required part of the program.
And as I watch the compulsories, both teams look very good, Cuba and the U.S.
The 4 optional exercises just beginning. Cuba goes to the vault. The United States is on the uneven parallel bars. And that's Lisa Whitwer from Eagan, Minnesota.
And Lisa is a tremendous example of the lack of experience on this team. Lisa has never competed out of the U.S. before, and she suddenly finds herself in an arena jam-packed at the Pan American Games.
Of course, each girl required to work both bars in this event.
And Lisa looks great here. Finishing the routine, a nice giant swing. There's a second one. Now they dismount. We're off to a great start.
And what a start for this 14-year-old in her first international competition. She gets a hug from her coach, Gary Anderson.
Now let's take a look at the second part of that exercise. Watch the extension right to a handstand right there. Another giant swing, very nice, no form break at all. Now watch the lift off the bar. Spots the ground. Perfect.
A solid start for young Lisa Ann Whitwer, and a good start for the United States also. The score 9-6-0. Luisa Prieto of Cuba had a 9.75 on her first vault. This her second attempt, Peter Corman.
And this is Cuba's best event, vaulting. They've always been good vaulters. Tremendous vault. That's going to get a great score. Cuba's off to a good start as well.
And the crowd agrees with you, of course, in vaulting. It's 2 tries. The best score counts. .985. A terrific vault. The judges obviously agreed, and playing the crowd, as you mentioned before, Peter Corman, is part of gymnastics competition, especially on the international level.
It sure is, John, and what a great start for Cuba. Let's take another look. A Sukahara with a full twist. It sounds complicated, and it is. Nice lift. Watch the landing here. That's why it's a 985.
16-year-old Lucy Wenner ready for her turn on the uneven parallel bars.
And this is a great 1-2 punch for the USA on the uneven bars. Whitwer competed first, now Wenner. Wenner's tremendous. This is her best event. She won the sports festival by 0.5 of a point. That's an amazing margin.
Each contestant required to work both bars. And that music you hear in the background from the floor exercise Remember, all 4 exercises going on simultaneously.
And Lucy's doing very well here. No mistakes. Nice stall to right to a handstand. Another handstand. Getting ready for the dismount now. Another fine routine. The U.S. is doing great.
Lucy Winter, a fine routine. And it's interesting, Peter Corman, gymnastics today requires movement. She was born in Memphis, Tennessee, moved to Connecticut to train, and now is in Southern California, finding herself in international competition in Caracas, Venezuela. That's the life of a gymnast, and she's only 16 years old.
Here's a release skill over the high bar with a half twist. Now watch this. She slips to an eagle grip right there. A blind skill, and it was done very well.
Done very well indeed. 9.65.
A great start for our women on the uneven bars, but remember, Cuba's on the vault, their strongest event.
And one of Cuba's strongest vaulters, Araceli Martinez, 9.45 on her first vault. This is her second attempt.
Another great vault by the Cubans. They're also off to a good start. This veteran team, Martinez was in the last Pan Am Games. They know what to expect. Our girls are very young.
And it's interesting, Peter, Martinez, 23 years old, began gymnastics at the age of 8. That means she's been in the sport 15 years. And there's a score, 9.75, and that's the one that will count. And Martinez's score helps the Cuban team pick up over a point in this first rotation. But remember, even though Cuba leads the U.S. by almost a point and a half, vault is Cuba's best event and traditionally a high-scoring discipline. Coming up, the U.S. on balance beam. Rotation of 4 here at the Women's Gymnastics Championships finds the Cubans on the uneven parallel bars, while the Americans go to the balance beam. This is Trina Tinti for the United States from Davis, California.
And the U.S. coaches told me very early in this competition that the key to the success of the U.S. team is going to be the beam.
Trina, one of the ancient members of the American team at the ripe old age of 17, Peter.
And an amazing story. In '82, she was one of the best prospects in the country, suffered a very serious ankle injury to the navicular bone, went experimental surgery where they actually implanted electrodes into that tiny bone in her ankle, kept her out of the sport for 18 months.
Would an injury like that prey on her mind, on the beam only 4 inches wide?
I think so, John. Certainly the balance factor there is amazing. And the stress that the women gymnasts put on their ankles on beam, vaulting, and floor, it's amazing to come back from such an injury like that. It had only been tried 3 other times before, and it had a 50-50 chance of working. And Tina says, I still have pain, but it allows me to compete. A very fine exercise. No major mistakes. Tina was chosen the team captain. She's very experienced, very cool under pressure. That's why she's starting on beam for the U.S. Slight bobble there, but she caught her balance. Dismount a full twist. That's a great start for beam. The nerves can get you there.
Peter, Trina used a rather unusual mount.
It's a combination of strength and balance. A press to a handstand. Now watch this as she lowers down to a straddled V-seat. Very nice. And that got her off to a great start on the beam.
And sets the tone for the rest of the team, all important. On a difficult routine. There's her score, 9.40, a solid routine with only a slight problem. Now to the uneven parallel bars, where Isabel Cruzada of Cuba is up. You know, Peter, we talk about this veteran Cuban team, yet Cruzada is only 14 years old.
There's a release skill. Oh, no, she missed the bar. She went very early on that front somersault catch. We've seen her miss it in practice many times. That's a major break.
Is that a function of her age being so young?
It could be, John, but we've seen her make that mistake so many times in the practice. Another form break right there. And a step on the dismount. This is not going to get a top score.
And for anyone who thinks that these athletes don't care, just take a look. Peter, let's take a look at it again. What happened?
Okay, here she begins the routine with a kip to the high bar. Very good there. Now she's going to cast to a handstand. Right there, change her grip. Here it comes. Now the front, but she let go early. And you can see she missed the bar by 7 or 8 inches, not even close.
What a tough moment for a 14-year-old. 8.85, a break for the Americans here in the second rotation. This is Tracy Butler, all 4 feet 7 inches and 70 pounds of her. Only 13 years old, Peter.
And Tracy's amazing. She's only 13, but she's competed around the world. She's been to Moscow, she's been to China. She's done very well in national and international competitions. She's our top junior gymnast now.
Peter, I want to know how anyone at 13 years of age can compete in this kind of competition, in this 4-ring circus, with events going on all the time, all around you.
Well, Tracy has tremendous concentration. As you can see it here in the balance beam, she has not made even a minor mistake.
That chanting in the background for a Venezuelan vaulter, Mayela Palacios, who had a 9.7 on her first vault, and that has to be a distraction.
And Tracy hit that back layout perfect. She's got another big skill coming up, an aerial cartwheel. Here it is. Oh, no, she's off balance. She fell right off the beam on that aerial cartwheel. That's a major break.
Here's Palacios. We've just mentioned that she had 9.7 on her first vault. This is her second attempt.
She's a tremendous vaulter. Round off, back somersault, full twist. Nice vault. That's going to get another great score.
All week long, these crowds' capacity, 2,500. And there's the score, 9.8. And it's celebration time here in Caracas. While all this was happening, Tracy Butler finished on the beam. Her score at 9.30, Peter.
And that's somewhat of a disappointment. We're playing a game of catch-up. We cannot have mistakes. The Cubans did make some errors on bars. Their last performer now, Chivas, their best performer, most experienced, 7th in the last Pan Am Games. She needs a good routine. They want to keep that lead going into the last 2 events. This looks great. Hit her foot there, but not a major break. Tremendous routine so far. No errors at all. What an experienced performer. This is where it pays off. Getting ready for the double somersault. Here it is. Oh, a top routine by the Cubans. They're tough.
And now you have an idea why Chivas is the Cuban national champion. She put together a fine routine just when they needed it.
The most difficult skill in her bar routine coming up now. Crosses her hands, a complete somersault right there. Re-grab the high bar. Very risky and very dangerous.
Of course, in this situation, an important international meet, you don't want to hold anything back.
That's right, and she certainly did not.
And her score indicates that 9.70, a clutch performance by the Cuban national champion. So Chivas rallies to save what could have been a problem round for Cuba, giving her team just over a 1.5 lead on the United States. And Peter, Cuba continues to pull away from us.
Yes, they do, John. It started after the compulsories. They had a 3/10 lead. They built that to over a 1.5. What this means to the U.S. team, they can make no more mistakes.
Of course, what's left is also very important.
It sure is. We go to floor exercise and vault, 2 very good events for us. And, of course, Cuba still has the balance beam.
Well, that's it for the first 2 rotations. Of course, we'll be back later with the final half of the competition.